The Galactic Alliance was an amalgamation of over 200 species, each one bringing its unique expertise and cultural quirks to the table. For centuries, it had maintained peace through diplomacy and an overwhelming display of technological superiority. No species dared challenge the Alliance's authority because it seemed like every civilization was at least a millennium behind in development. That was until the humans arrived. Rumors of humanity had circulated in hushed tones across the galaxy ever since the first exploratory mission stumbled upon Earth. A species barely venturing beyond their star system was hardly a concern for the Alliance at first, but reports kept coming suggesting humans were advancing at a terrifying pace. Some species dismissed these claims as exaggerated, others thought humanity might burn out quickly, like many civilizations that advanced too fast for their own good. Then came the transmission. A grainy intercepted signal from an unknown source deep in human territory spoke of a weapon unlike anything seen before. The term Railgun echoed in the Galactic Council chamber like a thunderclap. It was said to be capable of hurling solid projectiles faster than the speed of sound at distances unimaginable, even to the most advanced Alliance species. Skepticism turned to concern when more data emerged showing fragments of human electromagnetic propulsion systems. Commander Jack Hawthorne, a decorated officer and known skeptic of exaggerated alien myths, sat quietly as the council debated their next move. He was a tall man with sharp blue eyes and a demeanor that radiated calm confidence. Jack had seen enough false alarms to know not every rumor warranted panic, but something about the intensity of this one gnawed at him. He was chosen to investigate. His mission was simple: discover if humanity's railguns were real, assess the threat, and above all, do not provoke them. Jack boarded the Orion Eclipse *, his sleek stealth cruiser designed for first contact missions, though this one would be far more complicated. The humans weren't primitive beings waiting to be discovered. They were aware of the galaxy, they had ambassadors and trade agreements, but little was truly known about their inner workings. When Jack arrived in orbit above Earth, he saw the planet for the first time, a blue and green marble pulsating with life. Humanity's cradle looked peaceful, even fragile from up here. He opened a channel to the humans. Ambassador Laura Pierce welcomed him with warmth, her voice carrying a blend of curiosity and confidence that Jack hadn't anticipated. The humans seemed eager to show what they had achieved, offering to take Jack on a tour of their facilities. Jack accepted, knowing his real purpose wasn't just to observe but to uncover. The tour began in a solar array field, vast structures harvesting sunlight with an efficiency that rivaled the best Alliance technologies. Next was an artificial intelligence hub, where humans used machines to solve problems that once seemed insurmountable. Jack listened closely, asked questions, but kept his true intentions hidden. Humanity's technological prowess was undeniable. Still no mention of railguns. As the day drew to a close, Jack's suspicions grew. Why hadn't the humans brought up their defense systems? Why were they steering the conversation toward energy diplomacy and cooperation? Was this all a distraction? Later that night, aboard his ship, Jack replayed the intercepted transmission again. The grainy words, "railgun electromagnetic destruction," repeated in his mind. What were the humans hiding? Jack Hawthorne stared out the viewport of the Orion Eclipse Earth hung before him like a jewel in the void, vibrant and alive, yet hiding a mystery that refused to be unraveled. The warm hospitality of Ambassador Laura Pierce did little to ease his growing unease. Humans were undeniably skilled engineers, their technological achievements rivaling species that had spent centuries refining their craft, yet something about their approach to this visit felt orchestrated, almost too polished. Jack's orders were clear: observe, record, do not provoke. Still, the nagging questions about humanity's rumored railguns refused to leave his thoughts. He decided to accelerate his investigation, relying on the instincts that had earned him his command. The next morning, Laura greeted Jack with her usual mix of enthusiasm and pride. She had arranged another itinerary, this one focused on human advancements in medicine and environmental restoration. Jack nodded along, as Laura spoke about genetic engineering breakthroughs and atmospheric repair systems, but his focus was elsewhere, scanning for anomalies, discrepancies, anything that hinted at the truth hidden behind their polished narrative. It was during a tour of an underground facility, a geothermal power station deep beneath the crust, that Jack spotted it, a faint symbol etched into a bulkhead, resembling the emblem seen in the intercepted transmission. It was subtle, barely noticeable amid the station's other markings, but it was enough. Jack knew he had to act. That night, under the cover of darkness, and with the Orion eclipse masking his movements, Jack slipped away from the official quarters provided to him by the humans using advanced stealth equipment. He infiltrated the facility, returning to the place where he had seen the mysterious symbol. The corridors were eerily quiet, lit by a soft blue glow emanating from the geothermal conduits. Jack moved silently, his boots barely touching the floor as he followed the trail of markings. Each one seemed to grow bolder, more distinct, as he ventured deeper into the complex, until finally he reached a massive reinforced door. The door bore the unmistakable insignia of a classified project, unlike the rest of the facility, which hummed with the sounds of energy transfer. This area was silent, foreboding. Jack activated a scanning device designed to map internal systems. A faint outline revealed itself on his visor, a sprawling complex hidden beyond the door. Jack hesitated. Breaching human security wasn't just risky, it was an outright violation of diplomatic protocol. But the whispers of the council, the intercepted transmission, the sheer potential of what lay beyond this door overwhelmed his caution. Taking a deep breath, he bypassed the lock using an encrypted override. The door slid open, revealing a vast chamber filled with machinery Jack had never seen before. Massive coils of superconducting materials lined the walls, feeding into a central structure that looked like a cannon, but on an unimaginable scale. Power conduits thrummed with barely contained energy, and the air was thick with electromagnetic tension. Suddenly, alarms blared. Jack cursed under his breath as red lights flooded the chamber. He turned to see human security forces approaching, weapons raised. But before they could reach him, another figure entered the room, Ambassador Laura Pierce, her face calm yet unreadable. "So, Commander," she said, her tone steady and unyielding, "I see you found our little secret." Jack's pulse quickened as the implications of what he had seen settled into his mind. The railgun was real, and humanity had more to reveal than he could have ever anticipated. Commander Jack Hawthorne stood frozen in the vast chamber, the hum of raw power coursing through the air, as Ambassador Laura Pierce approached, her expression composed yet edged, with an intensity he hadn't seen before. Her calm demeanor only made the moment more disorienting. "Well, Commander, you've gone to quite the effort to uncover this," she said, gesturing to the massive structure before them, her voice carrying a mix of amusement and gravity. "I was hoping we'd have this conversation under more transparent circumstances, but I suppose the direct route suits you better." Jack straightened, meeting her gaze. He wasn't sure whether to apologize, demand answers, or prepare for an escalation. He settled on the most neutral option. "You weren't exactly forthcoming, Ambassador. What is this, and why hide it?" Laura paused, considering her words carefully, as the security team that had rushed in moments earlier lowered their weapons. She waved them off, silently signaling that Jack was no immediate threat. They retreated, leaving Jack and Laura alone in the shadow of humanity's most dangerous creation. "This, Commander, is Project Aegis," she began, stepping closer. "It's a planetary defense system, unlike anything the galaxy has ever seen, designed to protect Earth from external threats, whether they be rogue asteroids or more deliberate acts of aggression." Jack's instincts kicked in, probing for weaknesses, and her explanation: "Why the secrecy? You've been playing up your clean energy and AI systems, yet you keep this hidden. If it's purely defensive, why not share it with the Galactic Alliance?" Laura's expression tightened for a brief moment before softening again. She leaned against a nearby console, her tone shifting to something quieter, more personal. "Commander, let me ask you a question. How many planets have you seen exploited under the guise of protection? How many times has the Alliance's superiority justified their interference?" Jack frowned. "The Galactic Alliance maintains peace through diplomacy and power its systems. Its systems are designed to control. Laura interrupted, her voice firm, but not raised. I've read the histories of member species. How many worlds signed those treaties under duress? How many civilizations stagnated because the Alliance deemed them unready for independent growth? Jack said nothing, though her words hit closer to home than he cared to admit. We chose another path, she continued, crossing her arms. Humanity learned the hard way that trust isn't freely given, it's earned and safeguarded. We developed the railgun technology, not as a first-strike weapon, but as a message. We may be new to this galaxy, but we won't be powerless. Jack's eyes swept the chamber again, the scale of the project sinking in. He saw the precision, the efficiency, the sheer ambition of it, yet there was no denying the potential devastation it represented. You realize what this will look like to the Alliance, Jack said finally. They'll see this as a provocation. They'll think you're preparing for war. Laura stepped closer, meeting his gaze unflinchingly. Let them think what they want. What we care about is that anyone considering an attack will have to think twice. A weapon like this doesn't just protect us, Commander, it forces the galaxy to acknowledge us. Jack's communicator buzzed, interrupting the charged silence. It was the Orion, Eclipse *, signaling a priority message. He hesitated for a fraction of a second before answering. Sir, we've detected multiple unidentified vessels entering the system, fast-moving and armed. Laura's face hardened, her calm demeanor giving way to sharp focus. She turned to a nearby console and began issuing commands. Defense grid online, prepare to engage. Jack watched as the chamber came alive, systems activating and operators rushing into position. The railguns began to power up, their coils glowing ominously. Jack's skepticism wavered as a new realization hit him. Whatever humanity's intentions were, the threat they faced now was very real, and he was about to witness firsthand whether these weapons were as effective as their reputation suggested. The chamber shifted from quiet intensity to controlled chaos in seconds. Consoles flared to life as operators scrambled into their positions, streams of data cascading across the walls. Ambassador Laura Pierce's commands cut through the noise with surgical precision, every word focused and deliberate. Commander Jack Hawthorne stood motionless, his eyes locked on the railgun coils as they began to glow with an eerie blue light. The air was electric, humming with the buildup of energy as Earth's planetary defense system activated for what seemed to be the first time under real combat conditions. Unidentified vessels closing fast. Laura barked at the operators. Adjust targeting parameters. Focus fire on the lead ships. First, deploy orbital drones to monitor their formation. Jack's communicator buzzed again. The Orion, Eclipse * was still tracking the incoming fleet. They're not Alliance vessels, sir, came the voice of his tactical officer. They're running pirate signatures, likely augmented with stolen tech. Their weapon systems are hot. Pirates, Jack muttered under his breath. His mind raced. These weren't just scavengers looking for scrap. Earth had clearly been targeted deliberately, but why? Who tipped them off? Laura turned to him, her expression unreadable. We've been expecting this, she said simply. These aren't just pirates. They're mercenaries hired by someone who doesn't want humanity to rise too quickly, likely a faction within the Alliance itself. Jack's stomach tightened. He'd heard of such factions, but their existence was always whispered rumor, never proven. If what she was saying was true, it meant the situation was far more precarious than he'd realized. Outside Earth's orbital grid, the enemy fleet came into view on the massive displays, filling the chamber. Sleek, jagged ships bristling with weapons moved in formation, a wall of destruction aimed directly at Earth. Engage defensive protocols. Laura ordered. Aegis railguns, prepare to fire on my mark. The railguns rumbled to life, their massive superconducting coils sparking with immense power. Jack felt the floor vibrate beneath his feet. As the first shot was prepared, he couldn't help but feel a pang of dread. These weapons were unlike anything he'd seen before, raw kinetic energy, channeled into devastating precision strikes. The pirates opened fire first. A barrage of energy weapons lit up the darkness, streaks of red and gold aimed at Earth's orbital platforms and defense stations. The first impact struck shields, sending ripples of light cascading through space. Fire, Laura commanded, her voice cutting through the chaos. The chamber trembled as the first railgun discharged a streak of white-hot light, erupted from the barrel of the weapon, traveling so fast it seemed instantaneous. Jack's eyes darted to the display as the projectile tore through the lead ship in the pirate formation, shattering its hull into molten fragments. Another shot followed, and another, each one obliterated a target with terrifying efficiency. The pirates began to break formation, scrambling to evade the relentless assault. Commander Hawthorne watched in awe. The sheer precision of the railguns was unlike anything the Alliance had ever fielded. No energy weapon could match the destructive clarity of a tungsten rod traveling at a fraction of light speed. But the pirates weren't giving up yet. Their remaining ships rallied, focusing their fire on the railgun platforms themselves. Jack leaned toward Laura. "They're adapting," he gestured toward the display. "We need to anticipate their counterattack." "We already have," she replied coolly. Her gaze didn't waver as she issued the next set of commands. "Orbital drones, launch interception pattern Delta, target any ship approaching the grid's vulnerable points. Ensure no threat reaches the surface." Jack's skepticism began to erode, replaced by grudging respect. Humanity wasn't just wielding advanced weapons. They were fighting like a species that had learned to survive under constant pressure. As the battle raged, Jack found himself wondering who was truly underestimating whom. The battle above Earth raged with an intensity that felt almost surreal to Commander Jack Hawthorne. The pirate fleet was in disarray now, each ship caught in the crossfire of humanity's railguns and defensive drones. Some ships disintegrated in flashes of bright light, others twisted into broken fragments as their reactors exploded under the sheer kinetic force of the railgun rounds. Jack watched in awe as the human systems worked in perfect harmony. The orbital drones moved with precision, intercepting any pirate vessels, attempting to break through Earth's defense perimeter. Each shot from the railguns was a calculated strike, the projectiles tearing through the hostile ships faster than the human operators could celebrate their victories. But the pirates weren't finished. One ship broke free of the orbital drone's range and hurtled toward Earth's surface, its weapons powered up as it aimed a direct hit at a critical civilian station built just outside the planetary defense grid. The pirates had shifted tactics. They weren't just looking to defeat Earth's defenses anymore. They were targeting the heart of its population. Jack's blood ran cold. He had seen desperation before in war, but this was something different. The pirates weren't just fighting to survive. They were fighting to make a statement. Laura Pierce's voice broke through the tension in the air. As predicted, she said calmly, "Targeting system ready, railguns recalibrate on my mark." Jack turned to her, eyes wide. "You're going to fire at a civilian station." Laura didn't look at him. She simply stared at the incoming pirate ship through the massive observation windows. "This is our last line of defense, Commander," she said quietly. "If we don't stop them now, thousands will die." The words hit Jack like a physical blow. He understood the logic, but the implications were immense. The humans had designed their railguns to protect their planet and people, but the overwhelming power of those weapons came at a steep cost. In a single shot, they could wipe out a target with pinpoint accuracy, but if aimed recklessly or under pressure, the fallout could destroy far more than just the threat. There was no turning back. "Fire on my mark," Laura ordered as the pirate ship hurtled closer toward the station. Jack could feel his pulse pounding in his ears. He glanced back at the defensive platform as the railgun readied itself for the shot. The sheer power of it was undeniable. If humanity had designed this weapon for survival, it had done so with the utmost seriousness. Mark. The railgun fired again. Jack didn't need to watch the screens to know what happened. He could feel the shockwave in his chest. The immense energy burst outward as the railgun's projectile raced toward its target faster than anything he had ever seen. The pirate ship shattered on impact. Its remaining debris disintegrated into space dust, leaving nothing behind but the burning wreckage of what was once a deadly threat. But Jack's eyes were locked on the civilian station. He saw the tremors ripple through the structure as the shockwave of the shot reached it. The station held together for now, but the damage was clear. Parts of it were shaking violently. The shockwave had been too close for comfort. Laura Pierce watched the aftermath with a steady gaze. Her face betrayed no emotion, yet Jack could see the toll it had taken on her. Earth's first and only line of defense had saved countless lives, but at the risk of their own security and humanity's growing reputation. Jack couldn't help but ask why not warn the civilians, why not evacuate the station before firing. Laura turned to him at last, her eyes hard with a quiet sorrow. "We tried," she said softly, "but they refused. They wouldn't leave, not for the pirates, and not for the railguns. They trusted us to protect them, even at the cost of our own survival." Jack understood then what it meant to wield this kind of power. The railguns weren't just weapons of war. They were the weight of responsibility, a burden humanity had taken upon itself. Whether the galaxy understood it or not, this was how humans would survive. They would strike first and ask questions later if it meant their people would live. The price of power was never easy. And Jack Hawthorne realized he had only just begun to understand the true cost of underestimating humanity. The silence that followed the battle was suffocating. The pirate fleet had been decimated, but Earth had paid a steep price for victory. The civilian station, though mostly intact, had been heavily damaged by the shockwave from the railgun strike. Hundreds of people were injured, some gravely. The damage to the station's core systems would take weeks, if not months, to repair. Jack Hawthorne stood on the observation deck of the Orion Eclipse gazing at the planet below. Earth was beautiful and alive, but it had just been scared in ways that would resonate for years to come. What had he witnessed here today? Was this the true face of humanity's defense strategy? The hum of the ship's engines vibrated beneath his boots as he turned to look at Ambassador Laura Pierce, who stood beside him, staring out at the chaotic aftermath on Earth's surface. She looked every bit the composed diplomat, but Jack knew better. He could see the flicker of doubt in her eyes. The cost of the battle weighed heavily on her. "It worked," Laura said, breaking the silence, her voice tight but resolute. "Yes, it worked, but at what cost?" Jack didn't answer immediately. His thoughts were still with the station, the wounded, the civilians caught in the crossfire. He could see how she would wrestle with the decision for years to come. After a long pause, Jack finally spoke. "But did it need to be this destructive? There's a price for everything, but those civilians." "I know," she interrupted sharply, "but we didn't have a choice. If the pirates had reached the surface, they would have hit the power grids, targeted our major cities. The casualties would have been in the millions. If the railgun hadn't fired, the people you're worried about would have been lost too." Jack knew she was right. He could see the math in it. All he had to do was look at the devastation of the pirate fleet. How Earth had used its railguns to save itself without hesitation. But even knowing that didn't make the aftermath any easier to accept. Humanity's raw power was undeniable, but Jack began to realize that it wasn't just the weaponry or the technologies that set them apart. It was their willingness to carry the burden of that power and the sacrifices they were prepared to make for their survival. "You've shown me the strength of your defense systems," Laura, Jack said quietly. "But you've also shown me something else. Humanity isn't just preparing for war. You're preparing for something bigger, a future that will be defined by the choices you make today." Laura met his gaze and nodded slowly. "That's exactly what we're doing." She gestured toward the planet below. "We have to protect our future. We have to prove that we deserve to stand among the stars." Jack looked down at Earth and saw the truth of her words. He saw a species willing to defend its place in the galaxy at all costs. But as he watched the sparks of life flicker below, he knew this wasn't the end for humanity. It was only the beginning. There was more at stake than just the immediate survival of Earth. There was the future of a species that had only just begun to wield the power of the cosmos. That potential could either lead to a legacy of peace or one of destruction. And somewhere deep inside, Jack understood that the humans might not be the threat everyone thought they were. They were the catalyst for something much larger than anyone was ready for. This was only the beginning of their rise. And Jack Hawthorne could feel the weight of history beginning to shift beneath his feet. The Orion Eclipse lingered in the shadow of Earth for days, its crew silently processing the aftermath of the battle. Jack Hawthorne spent most of his time alone in the command center, watching the updates from the surface, the reports of civilian casualties, the rebuilding efforts, and the quiet relief that followed Earth's victory. But beneath the surface, there was a tension, a quiet realization that something deeper had shifted. Ambassador Laura Pierce had been unusually silent since the battle, spending her days coordinating with Earth's High Command, ensuring that the damage was contained and that no remnants of the pirate fleet lingered. Jack knew that the weight of the decision to fire the railgun, and the casualties it caused, was still haunting her. She had made the hard choice, but even so, the lines between heroism and recklessness seemed increasingly blurred. Jack knew he needed to speak with her. He couldn't leave Earth with these unanswered questions, not after everything he had witnessed. He found Laura standing in the same observation room where they had watched the battle unfold. She was staring out the viewport, her expression distant, as if she were trying to find some kind of peace among the chaos below. "You've been avoiding me," Jack said, his voice quieter than he intended. Laura didn't turn to face him at first. She took a long breath, the weight of the world clearly pressing down on her. Finally, she spoke, her voice low. "I'm not avoiding you, Commander. I'm just trying to make sense of it all." Jack crossed the room, standing beside her. "You knew the stakes going in. You had to make the call. But was it the right one? I've seen the devastation on the surface. I've seen the reports from your people. Can you live with this choice?" For a long moment, Laura was silent. Then, finally, she spoke again, her voice carrying the quiet resolve that had marked her leadership throughout the crisis. The pirates were never just a threat to Earth. They were a message. Whoever sent them was trying to prove something, to show that humanity was weak, vulnerable, that we were too new to stand among the stars. But we've learned. We've had to learn quickly. And now we have the means to protect ourselves. Jack shook his head slowly. "But at what cost? You've shown the galaxy what Earth can do. Yes, but you've also shown them that humanity is willing to take extreme measures to defend itself. If this gets out, if word spreads about the railguns, Earth will be seen as a potential threat, not just a defender." Laura's gaze hardened as she turned to him. "And what would you have us do, Commander? Wait until we're the next target? Hope that someone else will protect us? The galaxy doesn't care about Earth. We've learned it the hard way." She paused, her voice softening, but only slightly. "We're not asking for permission. We're making sure we have the strength to stand on our own." Jack looked at her, his mind racing with conflicting thoughts. He understood her reasoning. Earth had been vulnerable, and the fear of extinction had always loomed over the planet, even during peaceful times. But what Laura was describing was a dangerous new world, a world where power came with consequences, and where one wrong move could tip the delicate balance of the galaxy. "You're not just defending Earth," Jack said after a long silence. "You're changing the rules of the game. And that's something the Alliance can't ignore." Laura turned back to the viewport, her gaze falling on the planet below, its surface scared but resilient. "I'm not asking for the Alliance's approval. I'm asking for a chance to prove that we belong in this galaxy, that we can stand beside the stars as equals, not as pawns." Jack watched her, seeing the quiet resolve that had driven her every decision. But as he looked at the planet below, he couldn't shake the feeling that Earth's rise would come at a price that might be steeper than anyone was prepared for. "You're right," he said finally, his voice heavy. "You'll prove you belong in the galaxy, but it won't be easy. The Alliance doesn't take kindly to challengers." Laura didn't answer immediately. Instead, she stared at the stars, her eyes distant, as if she could already see the long road ahead. "We're ready for whatever comes next, Commander. For better or for worse, Earth is no longer just a bystander in this galaxy. We're here to stay." Jack could only watch as the planet, his people's cradle of civilization, loomed large on the screen. In that moment, he knew that the galaxy was about to witness a turning point. Earth had made its choice, and the universe would never be the same again. The Orion Eclipse drifted quietly through space, its crew now restless, eager to return to familiar ground. But for Commander Jack Hawthorne, the journey back to Alliance space felt more like a slow march to an uncertain future. His mission had been completed. The mystery of humanity's railguns was exposed. But the revelations had left a weight on his chest that no briefing or diplomatic report could ease. The long days aboard the ship allowed Jack time to think, to contemplate what he had witnessed on Earth, what Laura Pierce had said, and the choices humanity had made. As they neared the outer edge of the solar system, Jack had come to a conclusion. Earth's place in the galaxy was no longer a question of survival. It was now a question of dominance. The pirates had been a warning, but it wasn't just about defending the planet. It was about making sure humanity could not be ignored. They had fired the first shot in what was bound to be a galaxy-wide conversation about power, trust, and responsibility. The railguns weren't just a military tool. They were a statement, a declaration that Earth would no longer be a passive player. Jack's thoughts were interrupted by the sharp tone of his communicator. Commander Hawthorne. Came the voice of his tactical officer from the Orion, Eclipse *. We've received an urgent transmission from the Alliance High Command. It's flagged as top priority. Jack's stomach tightened. He had been expecting this. The Alliance had to be watching, waiting for his report, and it was time to face the consequences of what had transpired. Put it through, he said, steeling himself for whatever came next. The screen flickered to life, and there, as expected, was an authoritative figure, a high-ranking Alliance official, General Grant. The lines on his face were drawn tight, his gaze unwavering as he stared into the camera. The calm in his voice barely concealed the tension in the air. Commander Hawthorne, General Grant said, his voice measured but carrying an edge of urgency, I've read your report on Earth. I trust you verified the authenticity of the railgun technology and its potential implications. Jack didn't flinch. I've seen it firsthand, General. The railguns are real, and they're operational. They have the capability to wipe out a fleet. And now, Earth is equipped to defend itself with unprecedented power. The General's expression darkened, but his composure remained intact. This will not go unnoticed, Commander. The Alliance has already begun an emergency meeting on the matter. We're concerned about the destabilizing effects of such a weapon. Earth's rise has thrown the balance of power into question. The railguns change everything. Jack leaned forward, his gaze steady. General, Earth's intentions are clear. They're not looking for war, but they're not going to wait for an invitation to defend themselves. You have to understand, this isn't just about what's on Earth. It's about a shift in how humanity views its place in the galaxy. The General nodded slowly. And we're aware of that. But power like this, unchecked, has consequences. We can't ignore the fact that Earth's new capabilities will attract attention, both from allies and enemies. The balance of power is fragile, Commander, and Earth is now at the center of it. Jack exhaled slowly. I understand, General. But Earth will not be silenced. They've made their choice, and I believe they'll stand by it, regardless of how the rest of the galaxy reacts. The General's eyes narrowed, his voice dropping slightly. We'll see how they stand when the full weight of the Alliance's response falls upon them. You've done your duty, Commander, but you've just opened a door that may be very difficult to close. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Jack staring at the blank screen. He sat back in his chair, thoughts swirling. Earth had taken a leap of faith. They had laid their cards on the table, for better or worse, and now the galaxy would react. The Orion Eclipse was nearing the edge of Alliance-controlled space. Jack knew that this return wasn't the end. The true test had only just begun. Would Earth's message be one of peace, a new player in the galactic landscape with something to offer? Or would it be met with distrust, with isolation, and perhaps conflict? As the ship coasted through the void, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that the stakes were higher than anyone had anticipated. For the first time in centuries, humanity had made a statement that could not be ignored. The universe had just been reminded of one undeniable truth: Earth was here to stay, and it would not be pushed aside. The question now was whether the galaxy was ready to face the consequences of that.